Welcome to On My Mind Monday. It is Monday, January 27th. We're going to talk about a number of things today that are just on my mind. Of course, there's the first week of the Trump administration, as well as the Super Bowl has been set, and college football has crowned a champion and didn't get such great ratings. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the hostage deal. And those are just some of the things that are on my mind today. Well, the first thing, just kind of by way of sports, because that's just easy to talk about right now. Of course, the Super Bowl, nobody wanted. Kansas City Chiefs against the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, yeah, this one's a little rough. A lot of folks online just not happy about the way things have worked out to get to this. Although the Eagles are probably maybe a little more sympathetic, a lot of folks view the Chiefs as being more selected than having earned it, which is hard to say for a team that has been really as good as that they've been. But it is what it is at this point. And one of the things that kind of draws into this is the fact that the college football national championship apparently had abysmal ratings, like really, really terrible. And there's some suggestion that the Super Bowl might also not have the kind of ratings that at least we're used to seeing from the big game. Uh, Certainly, it's going to get Boffo ratings, but compared to Super Bowls in the past, will it? The halftime show is, yeah, maybe. It apparently it's a rap star that is popular in that genre. I'm not familiar with Kendrick's work, so I'm really not the guy to ask about that. And a lot of folks just really not happy about it, about the teams that are playing. I've talked to a number of football fans, NFL fans, fans of specific teams, all that kind of thing, that just they have no interest in watching it, which is pretty crazy when you think about it. Because who would have ever thought that the Super Bowl would be the show that people didn't want to watch for whatever reason? So pretty crazy to think about. Pretty crazy. So we have had Donald Trump's first full week in office, and it's been the roller coaster that we've expected. And as I've said from the beginning, I am not on Trump's side or not. I am on America's side. So where I see Donald Trump doing good things for America, great. I'm all about it. And where I see negative things, I'll mention that as well. I'm sure he doesn't really care about my opinion anyway, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say. So, mostly, I got to say, happy to see a president that is engaged and is doing things and is meeting with Americans and is flying to California and North Carolina and talking to the people, who is signing executive orders while talking to the press. Um, he's just been very active, and compared to what we've seen over the last 4 years, where we've had this president that they've really tried to keep in hiding because he was frankly diminished and everybody knew it, but nobody was allowed to say it. And we're seeing more and more information come out on that, and hopefully you know, the retribution will be swift on that. And I'm not talking about actions from Trump per se. I'm just talking about that the American people will really understand the lengths to which uh, the Biden White House and the Democrat Party, and quite frankly, a lot of the legacy media, the lengths that they have gone to try and pass off Joe Biden as being competent and able to run a country. And it's pretty sad, really. Now, Trump has done some great things, I think, and he's done some real super questionable things. I got to say, with regard to striking down DEI initiatives and all that other kind of thing, I think it's about time. These are the kind of things that, again, I think there are good hearted people that wanted to see these things and had equity in mind, and were wanting to see good outcomes for everybody and all that kind of thing. And I get it, it's good hearted, but I think is wrongheaded, and especially when it's coming top down from the government, just not good. So to see that kind of thing go away as a matter of administrative policy, in my opinion, is a good thing. I'm just going to say it. Now, the pardons, right? The J6 pardons. Um, I have heard, because I know people who, let's just say, found themselves in the Capitol that day, that were not specifically rioting and assaulted no police officers, and in fact, were, in their telling, actually asked to come in by police officers, but who had been harassed by law enforcement over the last 4 years, and it was a pretty bad thing. And so there was a hope that maybe in the pardons that they would be able to kind of separate the people who were horrible actors, who assaulted cops, pepper sprayed, assault, like beat them, um, tried to, you know, beat them up and all this other kind of stuff. I mean, really super negative stuff, and who vandalized our property, right? Because the Capitol is our property, and did all this riotous stuff. Was there a way maybe to separate the majority of the people who really didn't do a whole lot of anything bad, if anything, from those who are really horrible actors? And Donald Trump, in his thinking, decided that it was better to just make these blanket pardons than to let the innocent people have to wait even longer while he parsed out who was who. I'm not saying it was the right call, but that seems to have been the thinking behind it. Okay, that's fine. We're also seeing a number of the cabinet picks coming through, and um, again, some are better than others. Really, really love the pick of Marco Rubio for Secretary of State. He is the sharpest knife in the drawer. He is the best of the picks so far, in my opinion, and I think that he is going to do a really good job. A lot of people got on his case for saying that he works for Donald Trump. In a statement that he made, and they were saying, "You work for the American people." Well, the American people aren't the ones that are going to fire him. That would be Donald Trump. If he runs afoul of Donald Trump will be the one to fire him, just as Donald Trump is the one who hired him. So I get it. Yes, he works for the American people, but more directly, he has been hired by Donald Trump to get his foreign policy agenda across the goal line. That's really what he's there for. So there's that. Again, mixed bag this week, but mostly good. And again, I maintain my optimism for things with respect to the fledgling Trump administration part two. So this makes me think, there was a big to do about a situation where the president, vice president, their families were at the National Cathedral, and basically had to kind of endure a bit of a dressing down by this Episcopal priest. Um, and so everybody, of course, has a take on it. I'll just let you know what I think, right? It's on what's on my mind today. So, first of all, by and large, the Episcopal denomination has really distanced itself from classical Christianity anyway. I think it is just really a dying, if not practically dead, denomination. In fact, somebody joked that the last Episcopal has already been born. So, and I'm not trying to, I know there's a relation to the Anglican Church, and I have a lot of dear Anglican friends, and this is not directed at you by any chance, but just the Episcopal Church, especially the strain of which this particular bishop comes from. And certainly my theological position is that of a complementarian, so I wouldn't recognize the authority of a female bishop. And I know that might not be popular with a lot of people, and I'm sorry you feel that way. Um, I go to scripture as a Christian, and that's just what I'm seeing there. And yeah, I could go deeper into that, and perhaps one day I will. But I first of all would not recognize this woman's authority in any way. Um, but you know, we don't want to commit genetic fallacies here, and a genetic fallacy is basically dismissing an argument or a series of thought based on where it comes from, right? We don't do that. We base it based on truth, not on who said it. Um, Now, certainly, we've seen, even in Scripture, where there were horrible people, and even the Satan himself, who used Scripture um, and did it nefariously. Okay, so certainly that could be the case. Um, and what she was calling for was for him to have mercy. And so it made me think, in Scripture it says, he he's shown you, mankind, what is good and what does the Lord require of you? What does God want from you? He says he wants you to do justly and to love mercy. So there's an element of justice and mercy that go hand in hand. But then on top of that would be to walk humbly with your God. Justice, mercy, and walking with God in humbleness, in humility, if you will. I don't know that humbleness is really a word. But that said, I think if this is a person who was calling him to walk closer to Jesus, who wanted him to walk with God and do the right thing for that reason, I think it would have been a lot more tolerable. But this was just basically a way to kind of scold into some kind of behavior modification uh, in order to kind of fulfill what she thought was this righteous standard. And that's really not what we see in Scripture. So, yes, we should have mercy and we should act in justice. The two of them may live in tension at times, but we need to be comfortable with that tension, knowing that what's ultimately most important is that we are walking humbly with God, that we are in humility, right, which is a right. Humility is a right vision of yourself, right, that you see yourself correctly, right, that you have that when you're walking with God, that He's the God around here and you are not, okay? That will make you pretty humble. So I think that is pretty important. The thing that also is pretty interesting to me, though, with regard to her pleas and also the deportation stuff that we're seeing and that kind of thing, we've seen a number of people liken this to like the Nazis. Well, first they came for this group and I said nothing, and then they came for this group, and everybody wants to quote that stuff. Let's slow our roll just a little bit, okay? Nobody wants to take immigrants, legal or otherwise. Nobody wants to put them into forced labor camps. Nobody is looking to exterminate them and kill them. That is not what is going on here. They are being deported back to where they came from. Now, they may have come here looking for a better life, but you got to do it the right way. You don't get to walk in my house if you're not part of my family just because I left the door unlocked. And you certainly don't get to stay in my home uninvited just because you do the dishes, okay? So just because there's value that they bring to the economy, or that, they're nonviolent or something like that, if you have come into this country illegally and are attempting to work here and attempting to build a life here outside of the laws of the United States, that's illegal. That is illegal, and you are a lawbreaker. So it's not that you can say that this, somebody's not a criminal if they are here illegally. That's just my mind on it. And does that mean that we should be kind and we should help asylum seekers who are coming from war-torn areas and we should do all those things? Yeah, I think that we should. But I think right now, and I think what the administration is doing is putting a pause on a lot of these things to kind of sort things out. We also need to understand that there's a lot in the way of drugs and sex trafficking and things like that that's coming across the border. And a lot of that is coming through people who look like they're vetted. They look like they are wholesome families. There's a lot of that that's going on. And so we got to sort things out. And sometimes it's hard. And hard cases make bad policy. That's just the way it is. So those are just a few things that I'm thinking about today. Again, I remain cautiously optimistic about after the first week of the Trump administration. So that's good. Not sure if I'm going to watch the Super Bowl, but I think that there's a lot of other people there with me in that regard. The last thing I was going to talk about was just the hostage deal. A lot of folks pushing this hostage deal, and it was so funny that both Trump and Biden were trying to take credit for it when this is a crappy deal. So Israel is getting a few of their hostages back. Maybe some of them will be dead. Thankfully, we got these girls back alive. But in return, they have to release multiples of nefarious Palestinian actors. This is not a good deal. This is a terrible deal. The fact that Donald Trump talks about the art of the deal and how great of a deal maker he is and he's behind this is ridiculous. It is a bad deal. It is a bad deal for Israel because these prisoners that are being released, they are the kind that come back to do bad things, right, to Israel. And we've seen that. We saw that with Sinwar, who was behind a lot of the October 7th stuff. He had been in Israeli custody, and he had been exchanged in a prisoner exchange. And then this is what we get. So I hope for the safe return of all the hostages that still live. But this is a bad deal. Let's call it a bad deal. Really, we should have let Israel just demand all of the hostages be released, or they would just crush them until they release every single hostage. There should be no negotiation on that point. I get that the people of Israel are just weary of all this. I get that. But this is a bad deal, and it's going to cost Israel in the long run, in my opinion. And that's what's on my mind on this January 27th, 2025. Wow, 2025. Can you believe it? I'll talk to you next week.